Next up is one of our Fireside chats. It's going to be with Leslie Boxcore of Electrum Partners and John Downs, Arcview's Director of Business Development. Leslie is an accomplished investment banker. Many of you guys already know him. He's a futurist, a technophile, and he focuses on disruptive businesses and nascent cultures. At Electrum, Leslie and his partners help entrepreneurs who are seeking funding and prepares them for the complex and often rigorous process of raising capital. And on the other hand, they offer the insight for investors on proper valuation so that they can make informed investment decisions. Everyone, please give a round of applause for John and for Leslie.
I wish everyone could have heard the chat that we just had in preparation for this fireside, because I learned a lot about Leslie that I didn't know. May I?
Yeah, it was. As a matter of fact, it almost became that we took the topic of what our conversation was before this and said, hell, let's just talk about that.
So you guys want to hear about yoga? So Leslie, again, you've been around the Arcview community for quite some time. Troy's pretty fond of saying that you lead the category in insights per minute, and we greatly appreciate that. And, at Electrum, where you've been for, how long? When did you start Electrum?
Coming on 5 years now.
And you've been the president since the beginning?
Since the founding of the company, yes.
But I heard there were some changes that recently
Correct.
happened.
We, one of the things that we discovered over the years, we've had a number of discoveries, and then, we've been dealing with the issues ourselves of being an early stage business in a very rapidly growing industry that has a lot of changes taking place all the time. And I discovered that there are certain things that I really enjoy doing and things that I tend to be good at. And then a couple of years ago, we engaged an advisor by the name of Diane Katz. Diane had come out of human resources at American Express, Chase, and other financial institutions where she had been in charge of enormous numbers of people. And then she, in getting her PhD in conflict resolution, her master's degree in organizational psychology, she'd moved on to advising C-level executives and boards over the ensuing decade plus that she's been doing it. She came on to advise us on issues surrounding human resources, surrounding process, surrounding procedures, surrounding policy. And after 2 years of her advising me and the business overall, I decided to ask if she would be interested in coming on as the president of the company to deal with the issues that I found I'm not candidly great at, things that and I didn't enjoy as much, that I have discovered are so critical to the success of the business and any business. And that is, one, how to onboard people and how to manage people to success. And I am very pleased to announce that Diane Katz will be joining us as the president of the business, actually from a month ago now, and that my role as executive chairman will be to do what I've been doing as in strategy, vision, and more. And so it's been a big change, one that I'm very excited about, and one that also points to something that we hope to help many of our partner companies learn from, because we see that this is an industry that's very much based on people, and if you're not bringing the right people on, and going through the right process to make sure you're bringing the right people, and then not managing them to success and creating an environment for them to be able to succeed, it can lead to challenges. And if you do it well, it can lead to a work environment that doesn't feel like work, where people get to do what they enjoy and they're good at, and then it's that sort of magic moment where you have a team of people that do what they do because they love to do it and are great at it because they're doing what they love.
Well said. So I know that you've been around a lot of fast-growing companies. You've advised private companies at Electrum, pre-IPO companies. So it's sometimes difficult to turn the mirror around and take that advice or perspective and have to look in that mirror and make big changes. But in your role as an advisor, when you are out talking with companies on this issue of human resources and putting the right people in the right places, so that the companies can be positioned for success, what's one key that you really feel like you see consistently across the board in your experience, which obviously goes a lot further back than just the 5 years with Electrum?
Yeah, actually, the thing that is most astounding and also concerning is that every business I talk to, including very large businesses with, publicly traded companies with many employees, they almost all, to a one, say that when it comes to specific policies about creating the requirements for the role you're looking to fill, and then creating the search for that person, going through the search to come up with the candidates that are the best candidates, and then reviewing their output, and then going through that vetting process to really hire hard to manage easy. The thing that's concerning, John, is almost none of them are doing it. Almost none of them are doing it. There's a huge vacancy in the industry and in business in general that has to do with how to bring people on and then how to manage them to success as it regards the management of people. Our business is a people business. It's the people that we have involved that make the difference. The intellectual property they have, the ability to solve problems, and seeing what, holding the mirror to ourselves and then taking the steps to adapt based upon what we see has helped us now have conversations just candidly with our partner companies. And every single one of them has said to me, without fail, oh, can we talk to you about maybe trying to understand what you went through so we can implement something like that ourselves? Because many of them are finding that they need to themselves.
A lot of times when you see those types of, the founder doesn't leave the company or moves into a separate role and a new CEO comes on, it's because the company is in a transition, perhaps from private to public. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you a little bit about what you think about the public markets in cannabis right now. Does it make sense for companies to be looking at the markets in Canada, in the US? We saw what happened with Tilray yesterday. I'm sure everybody's excited about that. Tell us what you think right now, what's happening.
So I'll give a couple of data points that I think are important. If we look at the total valuation of publicly traded companies in Canada 4 years ago, probably you could say the valuation was 100 million plus for all of the public companies in the cannabis industry, maybe even substantially less. Today it's something like $28 billion. And the Canadian market, obviously, the Canadian public market is considerably smaller than the US public market. If you look at the valuation shift that's taken place, it just points to what I think is going to be happening in the US market over time. And if you look at the total valuation of US publicly traded companies, once again, probably in the multi-billion, couple $1 billion, not much more, when you take away things like GW Pharma, which I wouldn't consider exactly a cannabis company, or Scotts Miracle-Gro, which is not a cannabis company, you see, the opportunity for growth is enormous. And then when you take the bigger sort of reference point of the internet and new media, the last time we saw the birth of a massive industry that ended up engaging the public markets, the total valuation of publicly traded internet companies was in the low billions in 1994 and 95. By the year 2000, the total valuation of publicly traded, the top 280 publicly traded internet and new media companies was $2.9 trillion. And so that was in the year 2000. Year $2000, not year 2018 dollars or year 2023 dollars. So do I think that we're going to get to the trillions in valuation for publicly traded cannabis, pharmaceuticals based on cannabis, nutraceuticals based on cannabis, hemp companies, hemp for plastics, hemp for paper, things like that? Yeah, I do. I think that we're going to end up with that over time. And so do I think companies should be looking at the public markets if they're interested in liquidity and access to capital? Yes.
And it's going to be a straight line up, right?
No, certainly not. It's going to be a cyclical sort of trend. You'll see things that will peak and trough as we see the valuations trend upwards. You'll see good news come out of New Jersey that they're going to accept applications August 31st, and there'll be hundreds of applications for another 6 licenses there, and that might be some good news. Or Governor Murphy announces that they have a clear path to adult use in New Jersey, and everybody will, all the companies will trend upwards. And then you'll see some bad news. Jeff Sessions will say something that will cause everybody to get concerned, and you'll see things go down. Or the tax revenue coming out of one of the states of Colorado or Washington won't be positive, or will be less than expected, and there'll be a sort of a shrinking. But as you look at the overall trend over the next few years for these businesses that are public, you'll see them trending upwards overall as they have, and we'll see that for the next 5 years into much higher numbers. And we're going to also have to keep in mind that that's not just a sort of a stagnant number, single dimension. That's also going to have to take into account the number of companies that are raising capital and that are part of those sort of greater indexes that are going to exist. So no, it won't be a straight line. It will be cyclical, but those cycles present opportunity. When the markets are high and there's good news and you have something that you'd like to get a little bit of liquid in, that you have a position that's public, that's when you sell. If you're looking to raise money when the markets are high. If you are looking to invest, you want to wait for those downtrends when it's a trough, when you couldn't put your money in when people are feeling considerably weaker and they're concerned and, oh, is this going to not go the direction I thought? So yes, we expect not a straight line up, but a cyclical line trending up over the next few years.
Yeah. So I'm always a little skeptical when I hear huge numbers like the number of the market cap of publicly traded tech companies compared to cannabis companies, because I think about the technology and what happened in the dot-com and how it changed the world and is still changing the world relative to cannabis. It's like, are there that many people that want to get high, or is it so we obviously with Weed the People we understand, and certainly people in this room understand the medicinal benefits as well that we're only starting to tap. But last night you hit on something at the new member dinner that I found fascinating, which was your perspective on the hemp market. Would you mind sharing that with us here?
Sure, and it's not just the hemp market. It's sort of an overarching perspective on what the entire market can be. And what I mean by that is oftentimes we hear comparisons to the fall of alcohol prohibition. Would everybody raise their hand that has heard that parallel at some point, that this is like the drop of alcohol prohibition? So it's fairly common. The big difference is the United States was an island of prohibition surrounded by oceans of countries that had not made alcohol illegal. Whereas with cannabis, we made cannabis and hemp illegal here in the US, and then we exported that prohibition globally with the Single Convention Treaty on Narcotic Drugs of 1961 and more. And so we have made hemp and cannabis essentially illegal around the world. And the result of that is that we now have, as we see the exporting of regulated markets and businesses around the world, we now see the opportunity for the size of that market to be addressed. And to give you some numbers to think about, the total hydrocarbon-based plastics industry globally is nearly $800 billion by some estimates. Hemp plastics are a very attractive alternative to hydrocarbon-based plastics. As a matter of fact, I'm told that Mercedes-Benz is currently using hemp plastic in the manufacture of certain vehicles. And I'm also told that there's been that Ford Motor Company has been looking at using hemp plastic. Then you look at the global paper industry. I think the global paper industry, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers in 2015, was something like the top 100 companies represented $320 billion in revenue. And how much paper is used? Well, just as a sort of another data point, that same report or another report at that time showed that the US consumer uses 700 pounds of paper per year per person. So what does that mean? That means that on a global basis, the hemp industry could appeal to industries that currently represent $1 trillion in revenue a year. And this is a far better source of the feedstock for both of those industries than we're currently using. It's a renewable resource for plastics, and it's a better resource than cutting down trees for paper. And so does that mean it's going to get to 50 billion, 100 billion, 200 billion, 300 billion in revenue? I don't know. Does it mean there's the possibility of that? Certainly. And are there the market forces that will drive towards that? Yes. And then another sort of point that I would say is we tend to think of the US and Canada as, that's the whole world as it comes to the cannabis and hemp markets. When you start to look at the numbers beyond that, you see that there are 730 million Spanish and Portuguese-speaking people worldwide versus the 360 million in the United States and Canada combined. And then you look at India, that's 1.3 billion people. So you just look at those markets alone, and you're conservatively looking at between 4 and 6x what the US and Canada are combined. And so the level set that I'm trying to get to is that the size of the global markets are far greater when we look at all of this synthesized together and integrated into a single view than anything we'd been thinking up until this point.
Once again, upholding his reputation, highest insights per minute in the Arcview community. I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you, Leslie.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John.